So I'm really grateful that I got to spend this time with you all. I am, each one of you. And in an odd way, this particular Jew from New York hasn't yet had the experience of being in a room of people who are so fiercely devoted to Jesus. And I really have resonated with this experience and listening to you. So talk about that. So thank you. So I'm going to share a little bit from my tradition on how we think about rest and what rest means and what spiritual sustenance means. And I'm going to talk about Shabbat. So Shabbat is the day of rest, right? It's the last day of the week, and it's traditional in a Jewish household to cease all work, to light candles, to have a meal, and to really withdraw from society. This quote is a famous one. Nobody knows actually where it came from. It's just sort of circulated, but it's a way of understanding how the Jewish people, a small religious minority, wherever we've been, has stuck with this practice of withdrawing from the world for a day. Before I move through this, I want to say that practices of self-care and come to me in a particular way. They come to me through the voice of a woman named Lisa Anderson, who some of you may know. She is part of the team at Auburn where I am. She's an African-American woman who claims that self-care is a mandate for prophetic leadership. She doesn't play a fool when you see the martyr out there, right? The prophet martyr who's willing to maybe let their own life slide in order to do the work. She does not let that happen in our community. She is our heart and soul about it. I think the place from which she pulls is the experience of Black women who in movement spaces have done a lot of the work, but have died early, having borne a lot without our support or our validation out in public. And so when I think about self-care, and I think about even my own practice of Shabbat now, I can't help but think of her experience and the way that she roots it. There's another, you can go to the next slide. So, anybody know this guy? Heschel, right? So he's the Jewish theologian, the rabbi that my community likes to lift up a lot to talk about our contribution to social justice. I think that we like to lift up the pictures, but we're not so sure about the words. The man was a deeply important radical thinker and theologian, and he has a book on Shabbat, Sabbath, that has been really influential to me. So, could I have somebody read this who would like to volunteer?
Unless one learns how to relish the taste of Sabbath, one will be unable to enjoy the taste of eternity in the world to come.
So let that sink in a bit. I mean, I'm thinking I'm going to tell a story about my house. So I have 3 young children. They are 7, 4, and 1.5. Caleb, Eva, and Judah. And when we get together to do Shabbat, it's a little crazy. We have to rush, get somebody from the bus, we bring them home, it's, watch a TV show or something, let the parents cook, let us get the food on the table, but every week we break out the good wine, we set out the dishes we love, we make it happen that the kids get their little glass for grape juice. Everything is as it should be in the world to come, where every meal is something you invest in, you spend time with. The kids know that this is a big deal. My son, I usually make salmon, and my son said, one day I made chicken, and he said, "Where's the salmon? It's traditional." So don't let this, this particular tradition be something distant and historical. It can be yours too. Jews will freely give it up. I do think there's a moment where my wife sings the blessing. She has a beautiful voice over the candles, which we're going to get a chance to do later. And the kids all have learned over time, and now my youngest does this to cover his eyes when his mom does it. And in that moment, I feel like the world to come is not that far off. And I'd encourage us, to think about, really, where are those moments where you touch the world to come? Those mini Shabbat, mini Sabbath. Without an experience of it, I think it will be hard for us to move to work towards that without touching and tasting it. So that's good. Oh no. Okay. Steve, would you read that?
Gallantly, ceaselessly, quietly, man must fight for inner liberty, to remain independent of the enslavement of the material world. Inner liberty depends upon being exempt from domination of things as well as from domination of people.
So this is in a book about Shabbat. Of course, there's the gendered language, right? You can deal with that bit, but there is, and I feel like we've been talking about this in different ways and in different small groups about the necessity of the inner work, of inner freedom, to be able to engage with a world that does not share our values. And Heschel takes this as a material world, like just the world of material is not going to be a world that, it can escape from the domination of things and domination of people. And I've been increasingly turning to this quote because I think that this is one of the ways that I find my way into self-care. Without self-care, without Shabbat, we will reenact the tragedy of this society. And far too many of our movement spaces believe this as a second thing to get to. I think I'm the last talk. Maybe that means I'm batting cleanup, but maybe it also means that there's a way we approach this work, right? And I think that we all know what that feels like when at the end we look at the conference schedule and we're like, oh, we gotta fit in like a few fun things, right? So I see this as, how do we create at least 1/7 of our time as being focused on building that community on a bit of Shabbat within each bit of movement work that we do. It will allow us to do the prophetic thing, which is to create a world that we would want to be a part of. Anyone want to read that?
Zion is in ruins, Jerusalem lies in the dust. All week there is only hope of redemption. But when the Sabbath is entering the world, people are touched by a moment of actual redemption, as if for a moment the spirit of the Messiah moved over the face of the earth.
So this is another Jewish mystical notion that we keep coming back to, but that every week we act this play out. Every single week we see it again. We spend 6 days toiling, and then we come into this moment where, for an instant, redemption is literally right next to us. And maybe we get to occupy that space for a minute, and in time, we get to experience it. This quote makes me also think about the ways that time works in our day-to-day life. Where are places where we can light a proverbial Shabbat candle, carve out a little bit of space for ourselves, and touch that redemption again over coffee with a friend? Did we make time for that this week? Did we make time for it last week? And as I've been struggling with the outcome of the Trump election, I've also noticed within myself the ease with which my phone has gotten down to almost 0% battery, and my spirit has gotten down to almost 0% battery. I'm struggling on low power mode on my iPhone, and I think that actually represents me right now. Like I am that, and I know that this last Friday night Donald Trump did take away my Shabbat, but not this one coming up.
That's right.
And not the one after that. So note again the way that he creates a sense of fear that we can't even take that time for ourselves. Yet that is where we touch redemption. So Shabbat is not an option. Shabbat is a way of being. You need not take the whole day. You don't need 24 hours for it. It'd be great if you got it. But Shabbat can happen on every day. A little bit of Shabbat can happen on every day. We will fail to build the world we want if we do not have it. It is hard to really think that's true. It is hard. Because I think, I imagine I said that and you were like, yeah, that's a nice little talk. This guy with his cool Shabbat stuff and the images. And I would just say that we all need it. I need it. I need it to live. I need it to be. And I'll ask you, do you have Shabbat? Is Shabbat a part of your life? And so before we wrap up, you can go to the next slide. I'd like for us to briefly. This is still Heschel, by the way. So I'd like for you to just for a second. You guys love this. This is available for you after the session. So I'd love for you to briefly turn to a partner, and talk about the next time that you are going to have this sense of Shabbat. Okay? We'll do 2 minutes and then we'll come back. So I'm gonna light the candles for you now. This is with the traditional Shabbat prayer, lighting the candles. What I want to say is that my people have done this in Baghdad. We've done this in Tehran, in Mumbai, in Israel, in Warsaw. We do it in New York. We do it in Jerusalem, in Tel Aviv, in Paris, in Berlin. We did it in Russia, and we did it in Spain, Morocco. And this prayer is sung in different melodies, obviously, but by different people, and usually by women, has been carried around with us, and it has kept us. And I hope that it may keep you too. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu, lehadlik ner, Shel Shabbat.
Amen.